This is Michael Woodward, and this is Season 2, Episode 208 of the jumbleThink podcast.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the jumbleThink podcast, where we interview amazing entrepreneurs about their journey of turning dreams and ideas into reality. Along the way, they'll share some tips on how you can turn your own dreams and ideas into reality too. On today's episode, we are talking about the why behind jumbleThink. It's going to be a lot of fun. And before we get going, I want to encourage you, wherever you like to listen to podcasts, head on over there right now and subscribe to the jumbleThink podcast. For iTunes, jumbleThink.com/iTunes, and for Spotify, jumbleThink.com/Spotify. Take you right to the app, right to our page, right where you can hit subscribe. While you're there, leave us a rating and review too. Now let's jump into today's episode. Hey there, welcome to the jumbleThink podcast. My name is Michael Woodward. I am your host. I'm super excited about today's episode. We're talking about the why behind jumbleThink. I wanted to take a moment and pause and thank our sponsors for today's episode, Floxy, Opportunity in China, and Mighty Travels. We're going to be talking a little bit more about what they're doing and how they can serve you in a few minutes. To get to the story of why jumbleThink, we have to start with the origin stories of jumbleThink. jumbleThink was started with a simple idea that people were created with purpose and ideas and dreams inside of them. And many people choose not to chase those dreams and ideas. It could be a fear. It could be some kind of objection that's holding them. Maybe it's a family situation. Maybe it's financial. Maybe it's, like I said, fear of the unknown, or fear of failure, or fear of even success for some people. And I believe at a very core level that we were created for purpose. And there's an episode where I go deep into the idea of created purpose. And in that, I explored so many different people, watching documentaries, reading books about people, reading books by people and hearing their story, and noticed that the only difference between people who were doing things and people who were dreaming about things and not doing them was the execution of stepping into it. I thought it would be really, really cool to go out and interview people who were doing great things, whether it was at a small scale in a local community or at a global impact level, to hear their stories, to be inspired by them and learn their lessons. And so the jumbleThink story actually starts way before we ever launched the jumbleThink podcast, which started in February of 2017. It started about 3 years before that. I was dreaming and sharing ideas with friends, people like my friend Steve Chalet and Jason O'Hamlin, and of course my family, and saying, I have this idea. It's kind of like a late night show, but we go on site, kind of like Last Call with Carson Daly. And we go on site and we interview amazing entrepreneurs and dreamers and idea makers about their journey of going from idea and concept and into reality. As I started to explore this idea, I, of course, bought a Canon DSLR camera to go out and do these interviews. And the more that I explored the idea of doing video format, it seemed like it was going to get harder and harder to do. You have to bring the right lighting out. It's hard to do video on yourself with an interview with only you there. And so I'd have to bring in more people to help with it. And so for 3 years, I mulled over, how can I do this? And at the same time, I was learning about this guy named James Altucher and listening to his podcast and Steve Dubner's podcast and other podcasts, and saying, oh, this is kind of cool. This is what I want to do to share the message and story behind people's stories. It's just in an audio format instead of a video format. So for me, that's when I started in 2016 to say, what would it take to put a podcast together, and began the journey of researching it. Now, I had a lot of background in audio. I knew how to do recording. I knew how to do live. I knew how to edit. I knew the software. I knew the technology behind it. But I needed to learn how to interview people, how to ask questions, how to have a conversation that converted into content that you would want to listen to. And so I began that journey of exploring and growing. And in 2017, actually in the end of 2016, started reaching out to people I knew, some people I didn't know, and say, hey, I'm doing this thing. Do you want to be a part of it as a guest? And overwhelmingly, people said, yeah, I'll be on. And I wish I could say that out of the gates, I was the best interviewer ever. I'm probably still not the best interviewer even today, but I'm learning and growing and evolving during this journey. And so I took the risk. I took the step and said, let's start the podcast. And I was looking for a name, trying to think of what to come up with to do that. Ideas are often a mess of concepts. They are an overwhelming amount of data or a lack of data, and it's all mashed up and twisted together. And in that, there is a mess of information. In the process of idea formation and innovation strategies is putting thought behind the mess to give you a strategy to get there. And so started messing around with different names, doing mashups of different words, and I landed on jumbleThink, and I was like, I dig this. I like this name, and started to share it with friends and family members, and they said, that's a cool name. Put together a logo, and people were like, I like that logo, and it just kind of fell together and felt very right from day one what we were putting together in that. But that doesn't answer the question of why. Why jumbleThink? And maybe the why question wasn't a question that I really knew the answer at the beginning. I just kind of had an idea, had a dream of my own to start the podcast. And I just went, okay, I'm just going to go down this road. And along the way, the why became more significant. That's what continued to help me get through that journey of every day and not seeing the growth as quickly as I wanted of the podcast, or maybe getting turned down by my dream guest and being really bummed about that, and still knowing that I needed to push through and go further and push into the ideas and dreams that I believed in, the messages that were important to me. And so all of a sudden the why became more significant. Of course, everyone knows Simon Sinek. Maybe not everyone, but you probably know Simon Sinek wrote this book called Start With Why. To be honest, I've never read the book, but I've watched his videos. I've listened to him speak. And one of these days I actually need to sit down and read his book. I read a lot, so I don't know why I haven't. And he started to make this concept of why become so significant in the entrepreneurial journey. The journey of ideas and dreams. And so it made me think, why am I doing this? Why is this significant? Why is this important? Well, in a moment, we'll be back, and I'm going to share the why behind jumbleThink. Now that we've kind of outlined the origin stories a little bit, I want to go deeper and start having the conversation of why jumbleThink. We'll be right back. We are so thankful for the people sponsoring today's episode, Mighty Travels, Floxy, and OpportunityInChina.com. I want to let you know more about Mighty Travels and how they're helping people just like you with their travel needs. Here's a little bit more about Mighty Travels. I don't know about you, but I love to travel. I just don't like looking through all the websites to find the right fares to the right locations that I want to travel to. Well, our friends over at MightyTravels.com are helping you get better rates to the places you want to travel, often saving up to $190 per ticket. You should check out MightyTravels.com/JumbleThink to learn more about how you can use their service to get the right trips booked for you at incredible rates. So swing on over, check it out, MightyTravels.com/JumbleThink. We also want to thank our friends over at Floxy for sponsoring today's episode. Here's a little bit more about them. You have a killer idea for the perfect graphic or website, but you feel stuck and overwhelmed by the cost and skills it takes to create those ideas. Maybe you lack the time you need to create them. No matter the obstacle, it's time to get that idea created. And our friends over at Floxy can help you create those killer graphics, the perfect website, or even create the copy that's used on your next ad, all at a low cost, starting at $349 per month. Their on-demand, unlimited graphic design, web, and copywriting are backed by a 7-day money-back guarantee for all new accounts. And you'll be working with a dedicated US-based project manager assigned to your account. There are no hidden fees, and billing is month to month. So check them out for your next project and for the project after that too. You can find them at floxy.com, FLOCKSY.com. Let them know that jumbleThink sent you. And here's a little bit more about our friends over at opportunityinchina.com. Have you been looking for a way to change your career or social prospects? Do you see the world around you changing and haven't quite figured out what path you should take? You are not alone in seeking opportunity. Visit opportunityinchina.com for access to scholarships to attend university in China. Or, if you have a bachelor's degree already, opporunityinchina.com provides access to jobs in the educational sector all across China. Now, working in China is not only often well paid, but it will place you among 1/5 of the world's population, boosting your social network and bringing you more deeply into the story of globalization, ultimately opening up doors you never knew existed. Seize your opportunity now. Visit their website for more information at opportunityinchina.com. They also have a podcast that goes deeper into this topic. Search for Opportunity in China podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Now let's jump back into today's episode. In the first segment, I talked a little bit about how and the origin stories behind jumbleThink. I want to go a little bit deeper into the why of jumbleThink now. I often, when I'm a guest on other podcasts or meet somebody on the streets and I'm talking to them about the podcast, or even people who message me will ask, why did you start it? Why jumbleThink? Why is this podcast so important to you? And to be honest, when I started it out, just like I shared earlier, I didn't have an answer to that. There was no really why. I was just exploring an idea and dream I had to kind of figure it out as I went. And for me, I think that I'm like many other people where sometimes a dream and an idea isn't as clear cut. You have a fuzzy picture of where you're going next, and you just need to start taking those steps to move forward. And that's part of the jumbleThink story, in that we stepped into an idea and dream not knowing where it would take us or why we wanted to do it, other than we knew that it was something that was inside of me that I wanted to share. So as the podcast went on in the first year and into the second year and now into the third year, the why has become much more clearer. And for you, I think that will happen too when you chase an idea and dream. Sometimes you'll know the why strongly. Sometimes it will be there, but it will evolve or grow. And other times you just have an idea and dream and you don't really know why that's important. But once you do, it will start showing you why you need to go down this road. So I started this podcast simply with the expectation of exploring this idea of interviewing amazing entrepreneurs and dreamers and hearing their stories and sharing it with others. But as time went on, I began to realize why jumbleThink, why this message, why this podcast was so significant to me. In an earlier episode, I talked about something I call created purpose. And that created purpose is helping people understand who they are, their identity, and what they were created to do. A personal belief of mine, and it comes from my foundation, my core of the Bible and being a follower of Christ, is that we were all created for purpose, that we are all significant, that we all have something to offer this world. And often we sell ourselves short. We don't step into the fullness of who we could be. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's safety and security. Maybe it's other objections, whether it's finances or family or life situation, that we just decide that it's too hard or it's not worth it. And we settle on a safe life or a life of suffering that we don't have to walk in because we're selling out to something less than our dream, our purpose, our created purpose. And for me, this was the why behind the podcast. I believe that everyone was created for purpose. I believe everyone was created for significance. I believe everyone has a lasting impact into this world, whether they'll be remembered for generations to come or whether the next generation forgets that they completely existed. Their mark, your mark on this world will be forever. And in this podcast, as we've explored this further and further, that's part of the reason why we interview these amazing people, is to hear their why, to hear the burning passion inside of their soul, inside of their heart that drives them forward, and begin to engage in encouraging others like you, maybe, listening right now, that there is something better for you. There is something that is not necessarily easier, but it is more fulfilling. And part of the why for us is that I want to help others find that purpose, to find their significance, to find their message, to find their heartbeat and passion and fervor for a new future. For people to stop selling out or believing lies about themselves, but to find that true identity, that true created purpose, and begin to step into that reality. And this is where the why starts for jumbleThink, but it's not where it ends. This is critical and fundamental to the foundation. But for me, the why goes deeper. It is about meeting these people who are doing great things. It's about encouraging people, but it also fulfills that passion for me. My why is that I love helping people. I love helping people reach their full potential of their created potential. And for me, that fulfills me. That feeds my soul. It stokes the fires of my passion for myself to do this. Not everyone that listens to this podcast knows my story. I started my adult life, my career life, working at a church in Orville, California. Now, it's not like every other church that you've known, and to categorize any church like any other church is probably not fair because each is unique to its community. It's people that make it up. But I started working at this church that was in a city who had lost its way, who had lost its purpose, who had lost its people that were broken, many of them addicts, many of them struggling with their own demons of depression and addiction and of suicide and loss and hurt and wounds. When I worked at the Father's house, the reason I went there was because I saw a church where I could make a difference, where they were making a difference in the community around them, that they were impacting people and helping them find the freedom that they longed for, but also to find their identity and find the truth about themselves. In this journey of ideas and dreams, I think it goes way back for me to when I was a kid, but the Father's house was a catalyst for change. And I worked there. I worked as a youth pastor, helping youth that many of them came from broken families. And if they were lucky, they had a loving parent there. But many of them didn't have a parent, or if their parent was there, they were an addict, or they were coming from rough situations and struggling with their own brokenness, with their own hurts and wounds. And for me, friendship was the core of how I pastored as a youth pastor, as a worship pastor at this church. It was the foundation of saying, friendship is the place that we can do this together, where we can explore the possibilities and help bring healing for the hurts. And for me, that's where this journey of ideas and dreams really became a core foundation. I had my own dreams and ideas. Some of them I reached, some of them I did, some of them I haven't reached yet and may never. I don't know. We'll see. And so I wanted to be a catalyst for change in this community, to be a part of the change that this church was offering to the city, to bring new hope to a place that was devastated and broken. And that's what helped me on my journey to find my identity of being a person that helps. So how does that apply today? How does that help with the why behind me? Why do I tell this story? Well, because in many ways, I feel like my calling, my purpose today is to go beyond a coach or a teacher, although that's part of it, but become a friend and a pastor, to walk through the trials of idea formation and dreaming and help others walk through the seasons of making ideas and dreams a reality. So I see what I do. The why I do this is I see it as a way to pastor people, whether they are in a church or outside a church, whether they're a believer in faith in Christ or whether they're not, to walk alongside of you, to walk alongside others and simply be in a place where I can say, hey, I love you. I see that you are called for something great. I see that there's potential in you. I see that you have a vision. I see that you have a calling for something great, and I want to help you get there. So my why really goes into that. But again, it doesn't stop there. Some of my other whys aren't as helpful to others. Some of them are selfish. In my exploration of idea formation and innovation, I wanted to learn from the best, the people that are creating and writing the stories that change culture and civilization. To do this, it's hard to just say, hey, let's grab coffee when these people are so busy, when they are doing things to change the world. And the podcast opens doors for me to have conversations with people I may not typically have access to. Now, I know that that sounds kind of selfish, and it probably is, to be honest, but it goes beyond that. It helps me learn. These people that are guests, whether they're big names or whether they're small names, whether they're people I know on an everyday level or they're people that I only talk to once, these people, through their stories and through the questions I get to ask them, I get to learn and get the questions I want answered. And vicariously through these conversations, I get mentored and coached by them. And so the podcast, another why for the podcast for me, just being honest, is to get access to conversations I wouldn't typically have. Some of these are people that are heroes of my life that I look up to and I say, I want to be like them. I recently interviewed a guy named Erwin McManus. His episode's coming out in February in a couple weeks, February 26th, I want to say. And he is a pastor. He's an author, but he's helping so many people find their identity and find their purpose and dreams. And to me, he is one of my heroes. And I was able to interview him because of this podcast and ask the questions that tick inside of my mind that I wonder about, and have him answer them directly. So that's another reason why I do this podcast. I also use this podcast in these style episodes, these topical episodes, to explore ideas that are in my head, messages that matter to me, whether it's about education, whether it's about idea formation, whether it's about identity or core purpose. All of these messages, all of these ideas, the podcast gives me opportunity to explore them with you, to give you some insights, to give you some ideas, and then also for me to hone that message in a better way. So why does the podcast help? Well, I want to start speaking more. I want to be speaking and sharing this idea of you're created for purpose, created purpose. I want to share the message of simplicity and how simplicity and things like the Dreamer's Guide to Micro Experiments can unlock innovation and ideas and dreams to become reality. And I also want to be talking about other things that matter to me. And so the podcast allows me to explore these ideas, to share my thoughts, to share my insights and give them to you and hear your thoughts, hear your feedback, get insights that you get to share back. And so I do that. It also helps position me. Another why I do this, and probably another selfish why, is that it helps build my place as an influencer and an expert in this idea of idea formation and innovation. These are areas that are dear to my heart, and I want to help others be able to embrace the dreams and ideas they were created to live. And so the podcast helps build this credibility of he knows what he's talking about. He's an expert in this space, and he can help others. And finally, one of the other reasons why I do this podcast is to help me pivot from where I've been to where I'm going. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, if you've heard some of the interviews, I ask this simple question. I feel sometimes like I have a foot in the past and a foot in the future, and neither the future where I'm going or my past flourish. And in the present, I struggle to get from the old to the new. I struggle to get from point A to point B in this journey. And so for me, this podcast has helped me pivot my business, whether it's through the ads that are sponsoring this podcast and generating revenue so we can continue to do this, whether it's opening doors for speaking engagements to be a part of that, whether it's meeting with people through the idea camps that we're launching or through one-on-one coaching and helping them on that journey. This podcast allows me to have a tool to transition my business from web design and development and into the world of idea formation and innovation. Now, the weird thing is that Idea formation and innovation is very core at what I do in web design and development. When I'm meeting with a client who is building a new platform, a new product, a new service, oftentimes we talk beyond just building websites. We talk about how to make this product marketable, how to reach your audience, how to cultivate a better product or service, especially if it's an online or app-based technology. Well, we're definitely in the weeds with our clients, helping them innovate and dream around the possibilities of their idea. So for me, the pivot doesn't seem as big as what it does to others. The pivot is from going in and using web design and development as the catalyst to have these conversations around innovation and idea formation and dreaming, and into a new place where the conversation becomes the forefront. It's the very foundation of what we do. And so for me, the podcast, why I do this is allows me to have the resources to pivot the business. Ultimately, for me, one of the main reasons why I do this podcast is to continue to build relationship with other people who are like-minded, who believe that people are created for dreams and purpose, and that we can be a catalyst for change in our culture around us, whether at the small level with our family, with the people around us, our friends, our peers, our city, whatever level that is for you, that we can become a catalyst together to begin to impact our communities with a simple belief that people are called for greatness and that we can help be a catalyst for that change. In a moment, we'll be back to wrap up today's episode. Idea camps are coming fall of 2019, and we are working hard to make them awesome for you. Now, what is an idea camp? Idea camps are where we bring some incredible people who are doing crazy things together. They're going to share some of their stories, give you some tips and tools. We're going to go deeper into the topics of idea formation, innovation strategies, and get into the nuts and bolts of social media and other elements of making dreams and ideas a reality. We also will help you go from the concept into an executable method, a roadmap for the future to make those dreams and ideas a reality. There are a lot of things still to be announced with idea camps, but we want to keep you up to date on what's going on with them. So swing on over to jumbleThink.com/idea camps to learn more about the event. Make sure you sign up for our newsletter. That way you can keep up to date on idea camps, the podcast, and everything else going on at JumbleThink. We want to take a moment and thank our friends over at Floxy, Opportunity in China, and Mighty Travels for today's episode. Here's a little bit more about our friends over at Floxy. Floxy is your unlimited graphic design, web development, and copywriting team. It's time to stop thinking about those ideas, the next killer graphic, the next perfect website, the perfect copy for your ads, and start getting them created. Their plans start at $349 a month. No hidden fees, month-to-month billing, and you can cancel at any time. So for all of your web development, copywriting, and graphic designs, make sure you check out Floxy at floxy.com. That's FLOCKSY.com. We also want to thank our friends over at Mighty Travels for sponsoring today's episode. How much time do you spend looking for the right flight for your trip? Do you spend hours searching all of the different travel websites only to find out that once you booked your ticket, you missed out on a better price? Well, our friends over at Mighty Travels are here to help you. They want to make sure that you get notifications in real time so that you can score the best tickets at the best price, saving on average $190 per ticket. Well, they are doing cool stuff, so you want to make sure to check them out. Swing on over to mightytravels.com/jumblethink. That's mightytravels.com/jumblethink to learn more about how they can help you know when the best fares are hitting the market so you can grab them up before they're gone. And we want to thank our friends over at opportunityinchina.com for sponsoring today's episode. Here is more from them.
At the dawn of the 19th century, forward-thinking people moved to the commercial centers of Europe. Moving into the 20th century, America welcomed millions into the land of freedom and opportunity. It is now the 21st century. Many of the successes and fortunes of our generations will be made in China. To learn how you can seize opportunity in China, follow the Opportunity in China podcast. The Opportunity in China podcast is available anywhere podcasts are streamed. or you can visit our website at opportunityinchina.com.
Now let's jump back into the final segment for today's episode.
Pour mettre l'aiguille sur le disque, mettez le contact.
I want to wrap up today's episode with giving you a challenge. So many of us live a life without purpose, direction, or a roadmap for where we're going. And today in the episode, I shared a little bit about our why. A why is a great place to start in the journey of chasing dreams and ideas. Now, I said earlier in the episode that sometimes that why is murky or unclear or unknown when you start out chasing a dream or idea. You just know inside of you that that's the next step. And I think that that's perfectly fine. Other people will tell you it's not, and that's fine too. But I think it's okay to start out chasing those dreams and ideas without understanding the whole picture of what's going on there. So if you're in that journey, whether you've started out or you're down the road and you haven't found your why, I want you to start thinking about that dream and idea. Dissect it. Why is that important to you? Why are you passionate about it? Why does it give you a fire in your heart to move that idea and dream forward? Finding a why can be really difficult to do. I mentioned Simon Sinek's book. He has some great videos about this and some great resources. I'd encourage you to go study those. Understanding your why is it important? Well, one of the reasons it's important is it helps sustain you through difficult times. And I want to tell a little bit of that story of the jumbleThink podcast too. For us, when we started this, I thought for sure that my podcast would be the one in the 630,000 podcasts that would stand out, and all of a sudden, we would have hundreds of thousands of downloads per episode. Now, I wish I could tell you that that was true, but it's not. And I had expectations of grand things happening rapidly. As I started the podcast, I was really excited at the beginning. And then I got discouraged. Maybe it was a guest that said, hey, I don't want to be on your podcast. Maybe it was the fact my downloads weren't hitting the numbers that I wanted. And maybe it was just losing my own why or purpose in what I was doing. To be honest, early on, I was still discovering that. So finding that was so significant. For me, I thought so many times, this is it. I remember sitting in my office just frustrated, half mad at the world, mad at maybe even God, and half frustrated with myself and saddened and brokenhearted. I know that for me was very, very hard. And if you're in the pursuit of dreams and ideas, you're going to experience that too. Whether you're super successful or whether you struggle to make it a reality, in this journey, it's not easy. It's very hard. And you're going to have moments where you lose heart, where you lose excitement, where you lose purpose, and ultimately, many times you don't have a why or you've lost your why. And I want to encourage you right now. For me, I would have given up probably 3 months into the podcast. And then I met someone, I don't even remember who it was. We were talking online and he said, oh, you're doing good. And he gave me perspective. And sometimes we need that outside perspective, that cheerleader to say, it's going to be okay. You're doing fine. Keep pushing through. Keep going. It's hard. I get it, but keep going. It was amazing to me how just a small pivot made a difference. And so then I said, I'm going to do it for another month. And I remember reaching out to a guy named Bill Sheft, who was a writer for Letterman. And he's written books. He's written for many sports magazines and other news outlets, and really, really cool guy. And I had messaged him early in my journey, probably in the fall or early winter of starting the podcast, and I didn't hear back from him. And there's nothing wrong with that. There was stuff going on in his life, and many times when we invite a guest on, we never hear back from them. And that's just part of the deal. They're busy. Maybe the email got lost or went to spam, and you never know. So you just move on. You keep inviting people on as guests on the podcast, and you just hope that maybe one day you connect with them. And I remember opening up my emails late at night one night, and here was an email from Bill Shaft. And I think I was right at the place of going, you know what? I think I might call it a day and quit the podcast. And just seeing that email was the little spark that reminded me why I started this, to help people experience what others have done and apply those principles, apply the process of making dreams and ideas a reality. And so for me, all of a sudden I saw that email and I was like, oh, wow, this is awesome. He wants to be a guest on the podcast. And it just changed my perspective. Now, I wish I could say that was the end of my doubting in doing this podcast. I wish it was, but it's not. I remember even in the month or two before we had him on the podcast, after I'd heard from him, I remember moments where I'm going, well, I've got to at least go another month because I have Bill on the podcast, and that's one of my dream 10 guests. And he was on that initial list. And so I said, I've got to at least get to him. And then that meant that I had to go further until his episode went live. So all of a sudden now 4 months down the road, and I'm like going, oh, okay, now I'm starting to hit a stride. I'm getting some great guests. I'm excited. This is awesome. And this is great. So for me, all of a sudden that helped shift it. And it wasn't just the excitement of interviewing him that kept me going, but honestly, it was partially the obligation of the commitment. Now, I, of course, wanted to have that interview, and I wasn't going to cancel that because it was something I was looking forward to. But that obligation gave me a why in my moment of losing heart to keep going in the journey of making this podcast. And so sometimes you have to find those little victories, those little reminders of why to keep you going in the process of chasing the dreams and ideas you have. I wish I would be able to tell you that I don't get discouraged now. There are people I reach out to, and I know that there's no shot at having them as a guest. One of those would be David Letterman. The likelihood of him being on this podcast is like the likelihood of me being in the moon or on the moon tomorrow. It's just probably not going to happen. But he's one of my dream guests, and so I continue down that journey of trying to figure out how can we have him on? What can we do to continue to build that relationship to have him on the podcast? Reality is I may never have him on it, but it is still a dream. It keeps me going. It keeps me getting there. But you get those emails back and you go, well, that's discouraging because I was hoping. And you just keep on going. So this journey, why I'm talking about why today is not only because people asked me to talk about what is the why behind jumbleThink, but also to go much deeper and to challenge you that your dreams, your ideas, they aren't always going to be filled with success right away. You may never reach the expectations that you have inside your mind and your head and your heart for the things you want to do and where you want to go. The reality is, though, that I believe still, and it's my why, I believe you were created for purpose. I believe that you are called to greatness. Greatness does not have to be world-changing at a global level. It could be world-changing for one person around you. Your life could impact another, and that life could then set the trigger, the catalyst for change for years to come, for the lives of people you didn't meet, you never touched, you never spoke to. And so we need to begin to chase these dreams and ideas. We need to find the why for us that keeps us motivated so that we move forward, so that we move into the purposes that we were created to live. So we move into the reality of impacting the world at a level that we never imagined. I want you to think about that today. I want you to be challenged to take stock of what's going on, the encouragements, the disappointments, the heartbreak, the victories, the high moments on mountaintops and the low valleys of despair. Think about where you're at. Think about where you've been. Think about where you're going. And I want to encourage you to continue on this journey, to continue to make your life matter. You're called to so much more. And if you're not living that, today's your chance, your opportunity to take that choice to move into that reality. If you've been wondering, what am I called to do? What am I created to do? And you don't know where to start, send me an email. I want to start that conversation, not to sell you a product, not to get you into a program, but just to have a conversation, to help you dream, to find your purpose, to find your identity. If I never make it a dime off the conversation, but I can see that your life is changed, to see you step into those things that you're created to do, that would bring me so much joy. If you talk to my friends and family, if you talk to people that have known me for years, most of them, I think all of them would tell you that the things I do, I never do for money. Now, I wish often that I had a lot more money than I do. I wish I could say I'm a billionaire and I'm just doing this because I don't need the money. But the reality is that my vision is bigger than money. My passion for you is bigger than what I can get from you. I'd like to give you that gift of having a conversation to help you on that journey. So shoot me an email, mike@jumbleThink.com. It comes right to me. You can even call and leave me a message, 646-801-6331. Leave me a message. I'll get that. That comes to me too. I would love to start the conversation with you. I would love to help you find your tribe and community, a place that's safe, a place where you can dream and say the dumbest things in the world and know that it's safe. I'd love for you to become part of the jumbleThink tribe. So find us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Find me on all those places too, and let's start those conversations. You were created for something awesome. I believe it. I know it. There's so much you have to offer, so many possibilities for a future that while you have dreams and ideas, that future goes beyond what you could ever even imagine. So begin today to step into the journey for a better future. Start to take the risks into the hard path. Take the path that others wouldn't take, that others wouldn't dare to do. Take the path that people before you and currently are taking to change the world. Think about that person you look up to and say, you know what? I want to be like them. I don't want to copy them. I don't want to live their life. I don't want to have their purpose. I want to find my purpose. I want to find who I'm created to be. I want to find what makes me tick. I want to step into this. I want to make that happen. Look to them as a guidepost to say, if they could do it, I can do it. I know that there is so much despair in this world. There's a lot of conversation about the divide between the rich and the poor. There's so much divide between races. There's divide about genders. There's divide about everything. I know that the world is filled with despair. I know that you right now may see a gray world around you. I don't care where you come from. I don't care about your life situations up to today. What I care about is that you make the choices for a future that you can create. No matter who you are, no matter where you've come from, no matter the obstacles, no matter the fear, you can get there. You can go there. You can be like others who have taken that risk to take that journey. And so today, I encourage you. I encourage you because the world needs you, because I need you, because you need you, your family needs you, your friends need you, your community needs you. To begin to find your why, to begin to find your dream, to begin to find your purpose, your created purpose, and to step into these things. The journey is going to be difficult. And you're often going to have questions about how is this going to become a reality. But don't look for answers today. Look for a step towards the journey into the future you were created to create. I hope today's episode has encouraged you on the reason why you need to find your why, the reason why we need you to find your dream and purpose. If you want to have that conversation, drop me a note, drop me a message. I'd love to have that conversation with you. We also want to thank our sponsors for today's episode, OpportunityInChina.com, Floxy and Mighty Travels. Go support what they're doing as they support us, and they're doing really great things. So go check them out, connect with them, and see how they can serve you. I am so excited about our next episode with our friend Ben Flanner. He is the CEO and co-founder of Brooklyn Grange. What's Brooklyn Grange? Well, I'm glad you asked. They are building urban farms on top of warehouses and buildings in Brooklyn and in Queens. They are the founders and really the visionaries for urban farming on rooftops. They're doing really cool stuff. It's a killer episode. I know you're going to love it. So make sure to check out our next episode with Ben Flanner of Brooklyn Grange. My final challenge for you today is the world needs you. We all need you. Your family needs you. Your friends need you. No matter the challenges you're facing, you have so much value. You are loved, even if you don't feel it. And I want to encourage you To find hope if you're finding despair. To find faith if you're facing fear. Things aren't always going to get easier or better quickly, but the journey is worth it. Keep on going, and you will see amazing things happen.
Les mères de famille, les enfants, peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant. Dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps, vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.